The isobars are more tightly packed together. The easterlies at the moment bringing cloud cover, but the cloud tending to lift and break a bit more overnight as drier air filters in from the east, and as a result a few breaks in the cloud across eastern and central parts of the UK, more especially Scotland, where we will see a touch of frost in places because of those clearer skies and lighter winds for Christmas Eve morning. But that's where the best of the sunshine will be first thing across much of Scotland. A brighter and drier start compared to the last few mornings. For virtually everyone, it is a dry start to the day, and Northern Ireland looking a bit brighter as well. Some patchy cloud remaining. And we also see a continuation of the patchy cloud across England and Wales, but the cloud a bit higher, and as a result, it's not quite as gloomy as it has been during the week so far. Some decent cloud breaks then for many of us on Christmas Eve, with sunny spells coming through, more especially into the afternoon. Just some patchy cloud remaining across eastern parts, with this easterly wind strengthening all the while. That's going to make it feel cold, 5 to 7 Celsius on the thermometer, but feeling more like 1 to 3 degrees in the wind. The wind strengthens further on Christmas Day, risk of coastal gales around the south coast first thing, and that wind a key feature, bringing in perhaps the odd sleety shower to the far southwest of the UK. Otherwise it's dry for most and with plenty of sunshine, but feeling really quite raw in the wind, especially if you're in the south or the east. A similar day to come on Boxing Day.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you to our global community for watching and listening to GB News. We're not only the #1 news channel in Britain, we're chosen by you around the world.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the roads, M180 westbound between Junction 2 and Junction 1 in North Lincolnshire is reporting a traffic collision. One of the 3 lanes is closed, projected to be resolved shortly. Meanwhile, in Hertfordshire, the M25 clockwise between Junction 23 and Junction 24 has a broken down vehicle, causing 15-minute delays, expected to clear shortly. In Somerset, the A303 westbound between the A350 and the A371 is experiencing delays with 1 lane closed. On the trains, Cross Country and Elna are facing major disruptions between Newcastle and York. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
This Christmas, we're giving you the chance to win our biggest cash prize of the year. An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours. And we've come to the fabulously festive Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland to celebrate. £85,000 of tax-free cash really could be yours.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This Christmas, we're inviting you to join the GB News family for an occasion filled with joy. A chance to come together and lift our voices and celebrate what truly brings us closer at this time of year. So whether you're with friends or family or simply in the spirits of the season, we would love to share this special night of carols with you. Carols by Candlelight, tomorrow at 8 o'clock only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
Good evening and welcome to Farage with me, Charlie Peters. On tonight's show, a major Labour policy U-turn squeezed in just 2 days before Christmas in a victory for farmers up and down the country. The government confirmed it will water down its inheritance tax raid from April. I'll be joined by the president of the National Farmers Union, Tom Bradshaw, for his exclusive reaction. And a truly shocking case as 2 Islamic State-inspired terrorists have been found guilty of plotting an attack on Jewish people that Greater Manchester Police say would have been the worst terrorist attack in British history. I'll bring you all the details. And a third Palestine Action supporter has ended their hunger strike after refusing food for 48 days. But 4 still continue to fast. Is it time for the government to intervene? And you've heard about battered sausages and even battered Mars bars. But what about a battered festive Yule log? I'll be finding out more about what a London fish and chip shop is doing to help raise money for the homeless this Christmas. All of that to come, but first let's get a latest news headlines update with Sam Francis.
Charlie, thank you, and good evening to you. Just after 7 o'clock, well, the top story tonight, after months of protest and mounting pressure, the government has softened its inheritance tax plans for farms, lifting the threshold from £1 million to now £2.5 million. Ministers had planned to tax inherited farmland worth more than £1 million from 2026, triggering, though, warnings the policy could force family farms to sell up. Farming groups say today's move is a step in the right direction, but insist many businesses are still at risk. Reform leader Nigel Farage says it's another but a welcome Labour U-turn and a Christmas gift for Britain's embattled rural communities.
Well, this government's well known for U-turns, but this is a very welcome U-turn. The raising of the threshold to £2.5 million will make an absolutely enormous difference. Sure, some will argue it needs to be even higher, but it is a massive step in the right direction for small family farms right across the country.
Also tonight, 2 Islamic State extremists have been found guilty of plotting what police say could have been the deadliest terror attack in UK history, targeting Manchester's Jewish community. A jury at Preston Crown Court convicted 38-year-old Walid Sadoui and 52-year-old Amr Hussain after they brought assault rifles, handguns and ammunition for a planned suicide attack. Prosecutors said they viewed Jewish people as their primary targets, with Christian victims described as, in their words, a bonus. A third man, Bilal Sadoui, was also found guilty of failing to disclose information about the plot, as Greater Manchester Police have warned the attack could have caused mass casualties.
They have meticulously delivered upon an operation of almost unprecedented complexity. Their work has ensured that the terrorists' vicious anti-Semitism did not manifest itself in the destructive fashion that they fully intended. It was clear throughout this trial that the scale of the offenders' hatred toward our Jewish community knew no bounds.
Comedian Russell Brand is facing 2 further criminal charges today, including 1 count of rape and 1 of sexual assault, police have confirmed. The Crown Prosecution Service says the new charges relate to 2 additional women, on top of 5 existing charges involving 4 women. Brand has already pleaded not guilty to all previous allegations, which followed reporting by Channel 4's Dispatches and the Sunday Times. He's due to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court in January, with a trial listed at Southwark Crown Court for the previous charges next June. A former councillor has appeared in court today, charged with 56 sexual offences against his ex-wife, spanning more than a decade. Philip Young is accused of multiple counts of rape, drugging his former spouse, as well as voyeurism and possession of indecent images. He confirmed his details at Swindon Magistrates Court but did not enter a plea and has been remanded in custody. 5 other men also face charges linked to the same victim, who has waived her right to anonymity. And in the US, new documents have been released by the Justice Department, part of the long-awaited files linked to criminal investigations into Jeffrey Epstein. Among the 11,000 files is an email asking for inappropriate friends, sent from an account signed A at Balmoral to Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell.
The 2001 message appears under the alias The Invisible Man. That's a name also linked to an address listed in Epstein's contacts under the Duke of York. The emails don't allege any wrongdoing, and Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has repeatedly denied misconduct. The same document release also references President Donald Trump as a passenger on Epstein's jet, something he denies, with officials stressing that also does not imply wrongdoing. Those are this hour's headlines. I'll be back with you at 8 o'clock.
Thank you, Sam, and welcome to Farage with me, Charlie Peters. Now, in a major policy U-turn squeezed in on Christmas Eve, the government announced this morning that it will raise the inheritance tax relief threshold for farmers, an announcement that the NFU has praised as a huge relief to many. Now, from April, the threshold is set to be increased to £2.5 million, which is being risen from the £1 million that was initially proposed. So that means that spouses or civil partners with estates of up to £5 million between them will pay no inheritance tax on top of existing allowances. Now, here is what the Environment Secretary, Emma Reynolds, had to say earlier on today.
So we've listened to farmers and businesses across the country, and we want to protect more family farms and businesses. So we're announcing today that we're increasing the inheritance tax threshold for individuals from £1 million to £2.5 million. So that means a couple with an estate worth up to £5 million will pay no inheritance tax when they pass on their estate to the next generation.
Well, this announcement follows months of rather loud protests as farmers defied bans to drive tractors to Westminster. At a Commons committee last week, the Prime Minister acknowledged the pressure this policy had put on the farming community.
Is the Prime Minister aware that some farmers who have terminal diagnosis now are actively planning to expedite their own deaths so they hit before April? Is he aware of that?
I've had discussions with a number of individuals who've drawn all manner of things to my attention.
Well, joining me now is the president of the National Farmers Union, Tom Bradshaw. Tom, thank you so much for coming in this evening.
Good evening.
And tell me, when did you find out about this policy reversal?
Well, we knew that there were talks that things might be changing, but officially it was this morning when it became clear that there was definitely going to be change. And as I think you alluded to there, there's a sense of relief across the farming industry because so many farming families couldn't plan their way through this with only £1 million threshold. And so now the cumulative changes with the spousal transfer, which was brought in at the budget at the end of November, and the raising of the threshold from 1 million to 2.5 million means that when the government said they were going to protect the working family farm, many family farms are now going to pay a lot less tax than they were previously. So it is something that we welcome the change. It's never easy recognising when something's wrong, and eventually, after 14 months of long campaigning, we've got to this position today.
Why do you think it's taken those 14 months? Because the level of opposition was put up right from the very start. Not much has changed, really, in terms of the position of farmers and the position that the government is in. I mean, they're branding this move as a response to consultation, but is it really just a U-turn in the face of a bit of a panic?
No, I think that if you go back to the autumn budget when there was an opportunity to change, so autumn 25 budget, they made a minor change, which for those people who'd already lost a spouse is actually significant, and we shouldn't belittle the change that came there. But after then, Labour backbenchers really started to find their voice. They'd been working and meeting with farms across their constituencies. There's over 100 rural Labour MPs now. Now, those rural seats really matter to the party in government, and I think they started to raise their voices as they understood more about the consequences of this policy, particularly what we've called the anti-forestalling clause, which meant that although the changes didn't come into force until April 2026, effectively they'd come into force from the moment that it was changed in the October 2024 budget, so that if anybody transferred land after that date and lived beyond April 2026, but didn't live for 7 years, they were going to have an awful tax burden. And that anti-forestalling clause had trapped the elderly and the terminally ill with no ability to plan. And it was something that Labour MPs were clearly really struggling to defend within their constituencies. And I think that it was the pressure from them, the concerted effort from the farming industry and NFU members building that backbench support, opposition parties who've all committed to overturning the tax, eventually the Prime Minister, Secretary of State Emma Reynolds, recognised that they could not defend the policy and that they had made a mistake and they had to change that threshold.
And that political threat to Labour, through their rural MPs and the front bench as well, exemplified perhaps by that interaction you saw at the liaison committee with the Prime Minister being asked directly about farmer suicide, an extremely bleak reality to be faced with. When you met with the Prime Minister 10 days ago, did you raise that element with him as well?
It was absolutely the human impact of the policy that I raised with Emma Reynolds immediately after the budget, and welcomed the small change that had come, but just said, look, we're still dealing with this harsh reality. It's terrible to think that a tax change could put farmers in that position. But I said, we're still dealing with this consequence, so the change does not go far enough. And then in the meeting with the Prime Minister, Emma Reynolds was also there, and we talked about the human impact of the policy. That group of people, the post-Second World War generation that helped get this country back on its feet, had worked all their lives to be able to pass their farm over to the next generation and risked having it taken away from them at the 11th hour. That's not a fair policy. It's not a well-targeted policy. And that's why the change was so important. And that change has finally come today.
And what do you think has affected this move in so far as ministerial positions? You've had a change in Secretary of State to be engaging with. Did that have an impact in your engagement with Labour on this issue?
I mean, Steve Reid and I, as the previous Secretary of State, had a very professional working relationship. Out of the most challenging circumstance after the autumn budget last year, we had to have some very honest and frank conversations, and we've had those conversations. But obviously, Steve has now moved on, and Emma Reynolds has come in with that Treasury link, that understanding of the economics and the way Treasury works. And I believe she's been pretty instrumental in pushing this change.
So she had a better impact on putting forward the human view, as you put it, of farmers to the government and getting this change turned around, perhaps?
Well, the change has come under Emma's watch with the Prime Minister, and they were the two that I met with 10 days ago. So I do believe that both of them deserve some recognition. It's never easy backtracking on a policy, but recognising it's wrong and that there is that group of people trapped is something that deserves some credit.
Your former president, Baroness Batters, said that the sector is bewildered and frightened of what might lie ahead. I'm sure there's a sense of reassurance from this change today. But what more steps do you think the government needs to take to reassure farmers with this, perhaps olive branch towards re-engaging with that relationship?
So I think those rural Labour constituents are so important now. They've raised their voices. They're now a significant constituency within the Labour Party, and they have a voice that has been listened to finally on this policy. So this is a starting point, but it's certainly not the end. We need trade policy that is really going to uphold our high standards of animal health and welfare. We had the Animal Health and Welfare Bill yesterday, which suggests we're going to increase our standards even further. Now, farmers are up for that challenge, but only if trade policy makes it illegal to bring in food which is produced to lower standards. Otherwise, we're simply exporting our industry. We need a planning system that works. We've got over £1 billion of investment into poultry sheds on hold at the moment because the planning system does not function. That means we're importing more poultry from Poland and the Ukraine, produced to lower standards. Not acceptable. So there's lots that the government can work on. Many elements of that will be contained within the Batters review. It's stuff that we've been asking for since our NFU conference back in February with our blueprints. We need investment in reservoirs. We need investment in new infrastructure, slurry stores, poultry sheds, pig production facilities. All that investment will underpin the food security of this country for the next decade and beyond. And with 70 million people living on an island, when I look around the world at the moment, it feels pretty volatile. Bring in climate change as well. I believe we need a plan for how we're going to feed the country for the next decade and beyond. And that's what we need to work on with the government in 2026.
And just finally, Tom, have you spoken to Marcus Campbell-Savers, the Labour MP who rebelled on this and actually had the whip removed from him as he voted against the government's plans? Have you interacted with him today at all?
Not today. I've been in direct contact with him. He has been referenced on an interview, and I hope that the Labour Party find a way of forgiving Marcus. He raised his voice because he was so principled about this policy. And given that the change has now come, One would like to think that he has a route back into the Labour Party.
You say he might have voted against government policy. Perhaps he was clairvoyant. He saw it coming within a month, and perhaps you want him to be welcomed back into the fold.
Well, I just think he's done the right thing by his constituents, and that's what these Labour MPs have been doing. Those 30 plus that abstained in the vote, Marcus voted against, and they all deserve some real credit from the farming community for being willing to put their head above the parapet. Without those Labour MPs, this change would not have been possible. But they've only understood the consequences because of the engagement they've had with the farming community and members right the way across the United Kingdom.
OK, NFU President Tom Bradshaw, thank you very much for your time this evening. And let's bring in the panel now, shall we? The former Conservative MP and Minister Sir Ranil Jayawardena, and the journalist and former Press Secretary to Paddy Ashdown, Joe Phillips. Good evening to you both. You just heard Tom there talking about it was the backbench Labour MPs leading to this change. Joe Phillips, not the first time that's happened recently. He's battling with his backbenchers quite a lot at the moment.
Yes, yes, he is. But first of all, I would actually pay tribute to Tom because, you know, it's never easy to get to this stage, and it does require, on both sides, an enormous amount of pragmatism, an enormous amount of patience, and an enormous amount of, you know, sticking to it. But I think the point that Tom makes is really important. You know, those rural MPs, many of whom wouldn't have necessarily come from a rural background, are suddenly realising that there is such a thing as rural poverty. There is such a thing as, you know, lack of access to transport, access for kids to do things, all of those issues, no broadband. And, you know, for anybody who's out shopping over today and tomorrow, when you look at the price of carrots for 15p a bag or Brussels sprouts, you know, spare a thought for the farmers and the work that has gone into growing those. And I would just say that food security, as Tom said, has got to be as important as defence security.
It's a good point there, isn't it, from Joe Ranil? A couple of weeks ago I was in Devon and I was speaking to a European businessman who told me that in Britain food is just too cheap. You heard about how, you know, the vegetables going for pennies at the moment. Farmers take on enormous sacrifices to feed this country, don't they?
Absolutely, and food security is going to become an even greater challenge as we face a more uncertain world. I think supermarkets have used their buying power to put lots of pressure on farmers and others for far too long, and consumers, of course, can vote with their feet to make sure that their views are heard. But I think, you know, this particular announcement today is a huge U-turn from the government, and it's important that they go further now because it's not over. There are many businesses who are still going to suffer.
It's the way they've done it that I think might concern some farmers, though, because they have snuck it out over Christmas, haven't they? I mean, we heard of the announcement just before midday. That clip you saw of Emma Reynolds, we didn't have time to put a question to her, shared by all the broadcasters.
Yeah.
So they were really cutting it fine there. What does that...
It's as if they're embarrassed by the fact that they've had to U-turn. It's almost as if they're embarrassed by the fact that they're having to now defend, or now they're having to reveal that they were defending the indefensible. And, you know, only one Labour MP actually voted against this, of course. So, you know, a lot of Labour MPs were happy to go through the lobbies, vote for this, and it's going to cause a lot of embarrassment for a lot of them.
But they had to bring it out now because they've got to make
thing.
a change to the finance bill for January. So they had to bring it out. That's why it was done.
No. You can amend any piece of legislation at any point as you take it through Parliament. So that's just another government excuse, and it's part of a sorry list of poor excuses through this entire process.
The bottom line is it was a daft policy to start
Absolutely.
with. And they didn't think it through, they didn't listen, and, you know, for the amount of money it was going to raise...
Well, yes. Well, that's another question, isn't it? Where are they going to find that new hole in the budget?
Well, you know, look at the triple lock, for instance. Look at all the money that's disappeared into pockets of people over COVID. That, you know, recouping the money that was fraudulently stolen from British people during COVID, that unit has just quietly disintegrated.
There's more work to be done there on enforcement, of course, but this will be another headache for the Treasury, and they've lost so many battles now on these measures they want to bring in to bring down the deficit.
It's like anything, Charlie. You need to stop and think it through and think, is it worth it? And it certainly wasn't worth it for the pain for the farmers and rural communities, the gain that the Treasury might have made.
OK, Joe Ranil and Tom Bradshaw, thank you very much for your time this evening. We'll back to those two in a moment, but coming up here on Farage, it's a truly shocking case because two ISIS-inspired terrorists found guilty today of plotting the worst terrorist attack in British history. I will bring you all the details just after the break. Don't go anywhere.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Charlie Peters. Well, today, 2 Islamic State-inspired terrorists have been found guilty of plotting the worst terrorist attack in British history on Jewish communities. Walid Sardawi from Wigan and Ammar Hussain from Bolton wanted to replicate the 2015 Paris terror attacks in revenge for Israel's attacks on Hamas in Gaza. Now, the pair bought assault rifles, handguns and hundreds of rounds of ammunition in preparation for a marauding suicide gun attack in which they wanted to kill as many members of the Jewish community as they could, even children playing at Prestwich schools, and hoped to become martyrs. These deaths were almost an afterthought, appetizers, according to Sardawi, before his main course, a mass casualty gun massacre at a pro-Israel march in Manchester. Now, Sardawi told an undercover officer how Prestwich is full of Jews and scouted out synagogues, Jewish schools and a kosher supermarket. Well, joining me now is the JRC's Management Board member, Rafi Bloom. Mr. Bloom, thank you very much for joining me this evening. Now, the plans for this attack predated the Manchester synagogue event. Also, of course, the recent attacks on Bondi Beach in Australia. You must have a real sense of dread about what must be coming next.
Good evening. And I want to start actually by paying tribute to Greater Manchester Police, the Chief Constable, Sir Stephen Watson, and the security services for foiling what you described quite rightly as probably would have been the largest terror attack in UK history, the mass slaughter of Jews at a public gathering, followed by a marauding attack against synagogues, schools and stores, places where every Mancunian Jew will know and where we send our children to school, our grandchildren to school, where we shop and where we pray. But it's not a surprise because for 2.5 years, we have been shouting, screaming, telling anybody that will listen, telling our elected officials that this was going to happen, that something like this was going to happen. It did 2.5 months ago at Heaton Park. It would have happened again on a far greater scale had the police and the security services not acted. And we've been saying, as I said, for 2.5 years that we've seen the radicalization of men that come out of many mosques across the country on a Friday. The government has failed to act. The Charity Commission has failed to act. We've seen 2.5 years of Globalise the Intifada being screamed at marches every Saturday across the country. And when you allow people to do that, when you allow radicalization with the most vile Jew hate in sermons at mosques on a Friday, and when you allow these people to walk up and down our streets constantly calling to globalise the Intifada, people will. They did at my synagogue at Heaton Park, where 2 Jews were murdered, and they would have done again had it not been for our incredible police service.
Well, Rafi Bloom, you say that the Charity Commission and the wider British state isn't taking action. The Charity Commission does have some ongoing investigations into extremist mosques and preachers at them. But to that point, In November 2023, we put out a report here on GB News about a series of speeches that had come from mosques after October the 7th. Some decisions were made by the Charity Commission earlier this year, almost 2 years on from our exclusive reporting and our investigations into those speeches. Do you think that the British state in general is too slow to go on the offensive when it comes to these issues, and we hear more about protecting communities, not enough about going after those who would cause them harm?
There's no doubt that the government has been reluctant, slow, or simply refused to act on the effect of radical Islam, of radical Islamists. And what starts with the Jewish community doesn't end with the Jewish community. We're often the canary in the coal mine. And let me quote to you something that Sadawi told Farouk, the undercover officer. He said, if we were to carry out this operation, we target the Jews. We start with the Jews, and if there are any Christians caught in the act, that is a bonus, but we start with the Jews. What starts with the Jews doesn't finish with the Jews. And we're often told that the silent majority are with us. And I believe that is the case, and our community believes that's the case. But it's now time for the silence to end and for people to actually start speaking out against this hate and this incitement that has caused the death of Jews. It has caused many in our community to be fearful for our future here, to question our future in this country. And it's time now for people really to take a stand and to stand with us. We've had incredible support since the Heaton Park terrorist attacks on October the 2nd, and further support since obviously the atrocities in Bondi Beach. But we absolutely need more. And I would go further than that. And I would say that what we need is the many moderate Muslims in this country to also stick their head above the parapet, to challenge the extremists in their community, the ones who are spreading this vile Jew hatred, encouraging people to go out and to harm us, to kill us, and to attack us, and to say enough is enough. And as a country, we have to stop it, because if we don't, it won't just start with the Jews, it will end with British citizens up and down the country being targeted.
Yeah, Rafi, I think many people will echo that comment about wanting more moderate Muslims, of course, the majority in this country, to engage more and report those concerns when they hear them. One of the things that shocked me the most during our investigation into those radical preachers was how a lot of this stuff was just posted freely online. There was no sense of shame, even as we had imams talking about calling on Muslims to kill a Jew as per something they'd read in scripture. This was something they'd posted with their real names, their real faces, online. No shame at all. What do you think that says about the challenge we have to overcome this threat?
It's a huge challenge, and it's not just it's the challenge in mosques where this is going on, but as I referenced earlier as well, it's the marches that we've seen, the hate marches for 2.5 years now, calling to globalise the Intifada. We know what the Intifada is, despite what some people will say. The Intifada between 2000 and 2010 was 146 suicide bombings in Israel targeting restaurants, places of entertainment and buses. When you call to globalise the Intifada, you are calling for people to take violent action against Jews in this country, as these two evil men also wanted to do. And I think it's really important that we look at it in the round. The government has to stop this. We believe in free speech. It's a tenet of our society. But words have consequences. And those consequences result in actions. They result in the murder of Jews, attacks against Jews. And they make our community question whether our government really desires for us to stay in this country, to have a future in this country. The Manchester Jewish community has been here for 200 years. We've played a massive part in our community. We're proud Mancunian Jews. We're proud British Jews. Our British identity and our Jewish identity sits very comfortably side by side with one another. But we need our government to stand up. They have made some gestures and said that they're going to investigate anti-Semitism in the NHS, for example, where we've seen the most disgusting Nazi-style anti-Semitism of visibly Jewish patients being treated on the floor to have cannulas fitted for cancer.
What action would you like to see the government take specifically?
Well, they need to. Well, they two police forces now have moved to ban these chants of globalise the Intifada, and we saw an arrest take place in Manchester this weekend, for which we thank the police for finally acting on their word. In the NHS, the Health Secretary promised a rapid review. We've not heard anything about that yet. The marches actually need to be stopped because they are full of hate. Okay. And the Charity Commission and the government need to close down and remove the charitable status of mosques where this vile Jew hatred is taking place. As somebody said to me a couple of weeks ago, to use a festive analogy, the government have given us many baubles, but not yet given us a tree to hang them on yet, the Jewish community a tree to hang them on yet. They need to go quicker, they need to go faster. To use the government phrase, they need to act at pace and scale to act on this now, or more Jews will be attacked and more Jews will be killed in Britain.
Rafi Bloom, thank you very much for your time this evening. Board member from the Jewish Representative Council. Thank you. Right, well, let's bring in my panel now. Former Conservative MP and Minister Sir Ranil Jayawardena and the journalist and former press secretary to Paddy Ashdown, Joe Phillips. Joe, I want to start with you, because I think that what Rafi Bloom is calling for there, a lot of people sitting at home will agree with automatically. Better investigations into extremists. But his first demand for more limits on free speech, further police powers, that might raise a few more questions from our audience.
Yes, it will do, and rightly so, because, you know, of course, and I would absolutely endorse what he said, this is a fantastic piece of police work, and it must have been extremely difficult because you go undercover and you don't know whether you're going to be in time. So, you know, echo absolutely what Mr Bloom said about the work of the police. It is very difficult, and I know we're going to talk later in the programme about the Palestine Action hunger strikers on remand. But, you know, if these people are posting stuff online and they are very obvious, I understand that part of the reason these two who've been found guilty today were found out because of their online presence, actually. What you don't want to do is to drive people underground because it makes it much harder. But I do think the point about moderate voices, and that is not just moderate Muslims, it is moderates across the board, need to call out the violence and hatred, which is also directed to...
OK, but globalised intifada, do you think that should be illegal as a phrase?
No, I don't, actually. But I do think people should stop and think about what they're saying.
But that's the move that the state is going in at the moment, Randall. And your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, one of the central principles of this country is free speech, and so we've got to be really careful about prescribing certain words being used. I think more the point that he rightly made was making sure that we take action against organisations that promote the hatred. And so whether that is, in the case that he suggested, a few rogue mosques that there might be around this country, or indeed wider organisations that have a facade, a charitable facade, but are actually groups that are organising campaigns of terror of one sort or another against any particular organisation or race. We've got to make sure that those organisations, those people are rooted out.
Just bring you some more information from this trial. I mean, one of the terrorists here worked briefly at a discount store in Wigan called Bonkers Prices, gave up work, claimed universal credit, and then regularly posted statements from ISIS on Facebook. This is a foreign national who's come to Britain. I mean, why on earth are they still here doing that once they've reached that point, let alone before they start plotting a terrorist attack?
Well, yeah, so first of all, this person clearly has no love for this country at all. And so, you know, you've got to question why they've chosen to remain here. Second, I understand he was also very calculated in transferring assets and money to his wife and so on. So the assets he did have, he wanted to plan to give away to others so that they wouldn't be removed from him. And I do think, you know, the state needs to look more closely at these sorts of examples.
Just very quickly, Joe Phillips, Ammar Hussain, one of the guilty men, he told the police, terrorism is our religion. Qurans say, broken English, terrorism is normal, we are proud. We say terrorism is proud. Well, there were lots of people hearing that who will say that's a completely warped and twisted view of Islam.
Yes.
But there will be others who say it's nothing to do with Islam whatsoever. That's not true, is it?
It is certainly not in the Quran, for sure, and it is certainly, you know, an appalling interpretation.
But it's a fairly popular interpretation.
Well,
that's the concern.
Yeah, the problem is when you have somebody as evil as this saying things like that, it throws fuel on the flames of hatred against decent, law-abiding British Muslims and other races. You know, it's not just Muslims and Jews. Religions, yes, sorry. So I think this is wrong. And, you know, there's an awful lot of stuff. Islam is a peaceful religion, actually.
And yet, 46% of British Muslims said that they sympathised with Israel in the Israel-Hamas conflict. It is an issue we need to work out. We haven't got time to do it all right now. But thank you very much, Ranil and Joe. Coming up on Farage, a third Palestine Action supporter has ended their hunger strike. 4 still continue. Is it time for the government to intervene and meet them as they are demanding? Stay with us here, Farage, only on GB News.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello. Large parts of the Mediterranean looking pretty wet through the Christmas period. Some heavy showers around, some snow over the Alps, and for Madeira also a brisk northerly wind bringing a chill and a fair few showers. Wet weather across Morocco and for the Balearics, and heavy rain for Italy, especially in the north. Some big downpours too for Croatia and down into Greece, although much of the Greek islands will be dry and sunny. We'll continue to see sunny skies in Santorini through the rest of the week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It is dry finally for much of the UK, but increasingly windy during the next 24 hours, and that wind coming from the east is going to make it feel cold. That's the main idea for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Cold easterly winds, particularly for the southern half of the UK where the isobars are more tightly packed together. The easterlies at the moment bringing cloud cover, but the cloud tending to lift and break a bit more overnight as drier air filters in from the east, and as a result a few breaks in the cloud across eastern and central parts of the UK, more especially Scotland, where we will see a touch of frost in places because of those clearer skies and lighter winds for Christmas Eve morning. But that's where the best of the sunshine will be first thing across much of Scotland. A brighter and drier start compared to the last few mornings. For virtually everyone, it is a dry start to the day, and Northern Ireland looking a bit brighter as well, some patchy cloud remaining. And we also see a continuation of the patchy cloud across England and Wales, but the cloud a bit higher, and as a result it's not quite as gloomy as it has been during the week so far. Some decent cloud breaks then for many of us on Christmas Eve, with sunny spells coming through, more especially into the afternoon. Just some patchy cloud remaining across eastern parts, with this easterly wind strengthening all the while. That's going to make it feel cold. 5 to 7 Celsius on the thermometer, but feeling more like 1 to 3 degrees in the wind. The wind strengthens further on Christmas Day, risk of coastal gales around the south coast first thing, and that wind a key feature, bringing in perhaps the odd sleety shower to the far southwest of the UK. Otherwise it's dry for most and with plenty of sunshine, but feeling really quite raw in the wind, especially if you're in the south or the east. A similar day to come on Boxing Day.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Charlie Peters. Now, a third Palestine Action supporter has ended their hunger strike after refusing food for 48 days. Quessa Zourar, who was one of the first to begin refusing food on November the 2nd, was taken to hospital last week amid protests outside HMP Bronzefield in Surrey, claiming that she was being denied full medical assistance. She is the third of 8 Palestine Action supporters participating in the protest to have stopped, with 4 others understood to still be participating. Well, let's get the thoughts of my panel on this. I'm joined now by the former Conservative MP and Minister Sir Ranil Jayawardena and the journalist and former Press Secretary to Paddy Ashdown, Joe Phillips. Good evening again to you both. Ranil, the demands that they're making are pretty serious. They want Palestine Action to have its prescription removed. They want government ministers to meet with them as well and to, as part of their remand process, some of them facing trials in 2027. Their demands can't be met, surely.
No. I mean, are we seriously suggesting that the Justice Secretary, the Lord Chancellor, or a minister in his department should meet any prisoner who chooses to go on hunger strike? I mean, that's clearly not the way to run a criminal justice system. And let's also consider the crimes that these people are actually being locked up for. Why are they on remand? Indeed, why are they on remand? And they're on remand for serious offences that they've been charged with, including aggravated burglary, criminal damage. They're now jumping on a bandwagon to bring some sort of name for themselves in those prisons. They're being provided with the food that they need if they want it. They're being provided with the healthcare that they might need as a result of their hunger strike. There is no need for ministers to meet them. And in fact, I think it would send the very worst signal to other people in the prison estate that the way to get special treatment is to go on hunger strike, causing damage to themselves from a health perspective, but also costing taxpayers huge amounts of money in the healthcare that's required.
Incentivising people to go on hunger strike is essentially what they are being accused of doing. And if those demands are met, of course, there's a separation between government and the justice system. But Joe, let's just look through some of the other demands that have been made. Amy Gardner-Gibson, who goes by the name of Amu Gib, curious, it was visited by Jeremy Corbyn. She's demanded, or they have demanded, access to DVDs and Al Jazeera television while incarcerated. What do you make of that?
Well, I just would like to know what these people, what they're doing, how they think that is helping the Palestinian people, the people of Gaza that they care to claim so much about. They, you know, who have been bombed to smithereens, who've got no homes, who've undergone the most appalling privation, damage, starvation and cruelty. So I don't know how they think that their actions, which is all about them, is actually helping them. And I think there is a bigger question here that Palestine Action, I believe to be a very malevolent group. I think they're very manipulative, and you can see it in the way that people behave. We can see it in, you know, Greta Thunberg has turned up and been arrested, not because she's protesting against the war in Gaza or protesting for the people of Palestine, but she's holding up the Palestine Action. So it becomes all about Palestine Action and not about Palestine, not about peace, not about the people of Gaza. And I think it would be useful if the Home Secretary explained why Palestine Action is deemed to be a terrorist group, because I think it would perhaps take away some of the stuff that I believe they are doing, which is to manipulate people who genuinely care about the plight of Palestinians into ending up being arrested for holding up a cardboard placard.
Ranil, would you have prescribed Palestine Action if you were in government? Of course, can't speak about the cases that are currently ongoing or any details about them. But there has been a broader debate about free speech, how it might impact people supporting the concerns of others in Palestine, for example. Do you think it's gone too far with that prescription?
Well, I think there are some clear tests. I've never served in the Home Office. There are clear tests that have been followed. I, in fact, would have believed that the Home Office should have prescribed another organisation that's a terrorist organisation in a foreign country that had some fundraising here, and it chose not to for perfectly legal reasons, I'm sure, perfectly sound legal reasons, I'm sure. Instead, they have prescribed Palestine Action. So clearly they're following some tests internally. I suspect there's also a desire for the Home Secretary to send a strong signal that they're not going to permit those who abuse Jewish people and attend big protests to get away with it. And perhaps there is that signal that the Labour Party wanted to send.
Prescription is a pretty strong tool to send that message across. Just very quickly, on the point of Greta Thunberg being arrested earlier today that Joe Phillips just mentioned, we heard from Rafi Bloom earlier today talking about how there's a silent majority who support Jewish people against the targeting they're facing. Do you think that there are lots of influential people, perhaps a very loud minority, who don't realise the credibility and support they are giving to more malevolent and nefarious groups with that level of protest?
I think she recognises that precisely, and she's a professional attention seeker, and that's all she has done, unfortunately, since she was a teenager. So she is doing this with herself at the heart of it, quite apart from the cause that she's supposedly representing.
Right, it was climate, then it was Gaza. We'll see what it will be next. Right, Ranald, Joe, thank you very much. Stay with me, though, because you've heard of battered sausage and even battered Mars bar. But what about a battered Yule log? Find out next why this unlikely bit of food is helping to raise money for the homeless this Christmas. And maybe we'll have a bit of a bite on that here in the studio. See you in a moment.
This Christmas, we're inviting you to join the GB News family for an occasion filled with joy. A chance to come together and lift our voices and celebrate what truly brings us closer at this time of year. So whether you're with friends or family or simply in the spirits of the season, we would love to share this special night of carols with you. Carols by candlelight, tomorrow at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Charlie Peters. Now, you've heard of battered sausage and I'm sure even a battered Mars bar, but what about a battered Yule log? That's right, because Poppy's Fish and Chips in London's West End is getting in the festive spirit, all in the name of charity. And here to tell us more about this curious deep-fried festive treat is Benji Saint from the charity Thames Reach. Benji, thank you very much for coming in this evening. What's this relationship you've got with this Chippy in Soho, and what's it all about?
Yeah, no, I realise it seems to have sort of not two things you necessarily put together, but it's so important at this time of year to think of people less fortunate in our Thames Reach. We're the charity I work for. We're a homelessness charity in London, and we work to get people off the streets and then into accommodation, but then providing that long-term support as well to make sure they can sort of remain housed and be able to really live independent, fulfilling lives and supporting them with employability and that kind of thing.
And what do these curious festive treats do to play a role in that? Because we've also got some vanilla gelato I might get stuck on.
No.
Or you crack on with your bit. I might go at this.
No, you crack on. Not two things you necessarily put together, but it's really a way of indulging yourself and having a bit of an impact.
Speaking of which,
tuck in, yeah.
This looks pretty great, to be honest, Benji.
Yeah, so Poppies have supported charities before. This year they're supporting us with this item which you can get from their Soho store, and all of the proceeds go to us at Thames Reach, and that will support things like our outreach shifts, so getting people directly from the streets into accommodation, supporting practical sort of necessities, so when we do secure people that long-term housing, that they can really stay there and sort of be stable and live independent, fulfilling lives. So that might be bedding, it might be a kettle, so they can make something as simple as a cup of tea.
And for $8.95, you can enjoy one of these extremely delicious, festive, deep-fried Yule logs to pay towards that opportunity to reach out to someone and give them the bed this Christmas.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's really important, as I say, it's a way of indulging yourself and making an impact, really. So, really important at this time of year when obviously it's more essential than ever that we get people off the streets and into accommodation.
I see you eyeing this. Yule log. I'm seeing. Do you want a piece?
I would
Go
love
on,
a
treat
piece.
yourself. It's pretty good stuff, that.
I'll leave that half. I like to think that the vanilla ice cream takes the edge off.
It does slightly.
A little bit.
So, I mean, we were just hearing from Jo Phillips earlier in the show. She said that in Inverness she once saw a fully deep-fried Christmas supper. The full works, every single item deep-fried. And, you know, I went to university in Edinburgh. I've seen a fair few curious deep-fried items in my time, but this is a new one for me.
This is a new one. Yeah, well,
depends on the thickness.
Who knows what it'll be next year?
The thickness of the batter is the people's idea of what makes it a particular quality or not, and also the coronary risk. Yeah. And this quite a delicate, quite a light battering, you'd say.
I'd say it's not too thick. I've had deep fried Mars bars before, as I'm sure some other people have. I see Jacob nodding, but
I was going to say,
hypothetically,
we are joined by the Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. I know I can hear him actually panting, looking at this deep-fried Yule log.
I think they look absolutely delicious. I love deep-fried Mars bars.
You do?
I think the thing is that you shouldn't have them every day. But if you have it at Christmas, I think that's absolutely fine. I don't think there's any problem.
Jacob, you've enjoyed watching me eat with a fork and a spoon. Do you eat with your hands?
You want me to eat with my fingers?
Go on,
do you ruin my reputation? I shall have. It's a deep-fried Yule log.
You good man.
The vanilla ice cream does take the edge off the richness.
That's delicious.
It's a good combination.
We're not allowed to advertise, are we? But everybody should go to Poppies. Just absolutely everybody tonight. If you're going out, go to Poppies, buy one, support good works, and help people who are less fortunate than all of us at Christmas. It's such a wonderful thing to be doing.
In the Christmas spirit, I'll give Sir Jacob a moment to chew.
It takes a bit of time to chew your way around it.
And Benji, how long has the relationship been with Poppies?
They reached out to us, I think, perhaps in November, but the impact they've had in that short time, they're a really iconic London-based brand. They've been around for decades, so it's nice for, we both serve London in different ways, I guess, but they have already delivered 170 fish and chip shop meals to our residents all across London, from Lambeth to Greenwich to central London, all over.
Benji Saint, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much from Thames Reach. Good luck over the Christmas period.
Thank you.
So, Jacob, it's been a pleasure having you, and as well, State of the Nation coming up. You have time to digest.
I have. I've been enjoying that. It's very good to see you as well. What am I going to be talking about tonight? Why, there's hope. This government's dreadful. We're going to the dogs, but from the ashes of disaster grow the roses of success. So that's what I'll be talking about.
Rising from the ashes like a phoenix of a festive Yule log. It's the weather coming up now.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It is dry, finally, for much of the UK, but increasingly windy during the next 24 hours, and that wind coming from the east is going to make it feel cold. That's the main idea for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Cold easterly winds, particularly for the southern half of the UK where the isobars are more tightly packed together. The easterlies at the moment bringing cloud cover, but the cloud tending to lift and break a bit more overnight as drier air filters in from the east. And as a result, a few breaks in the cloud across eastern and central parts of the UK, more especially Scotland, where we will see a touch of frost in places because of those clearer skies and lighter winds for Christmas Eve morning. But that's where the best of the sunshine will be first thing across much of Scotland. A brighter and drier start compared to the last few mornings. For virtually everyone, it is a dry start to the day, and Northern Ireland looking a bit brighter as well. Some patchy cloud remaining. And we also see a continuation of the patchy cloud across England and Wales, but the cloud a bit higher, and as a result, it's not quite as gloomy as it has been during the week so far. Some decent cloud breaks then for many of us on Christmas Eve, with sunny spells coming through, more especially into the afternoon. Just some patchy cloud remaining across eastern parts, with this easterly wind strengthening all the while. That's going to make it feel cold, 5 to 7 Celsius on the thermometer, but feeling more like 1 to 3 degrees in the wind. The wind strengthens further on Christmas Day, risk of coastal gales around the south coast first thing, and that wind a key feature, bringing in perhaps the odd sleety shower to the far southwest of the UK. Otherwise it's dry for most and with plenty of sunshine, but feeling really quite raw in the wind, especially if you're in the south or the east. A similar day to come on Boxing Day.
Expect warm spells.
A very Merry Christmas to you all from the Aurora Collection Resort in Lapland.
We're on an amazing Arctic adventure to celebrate our greatest cash giveaway, a simply stunning £85,000.
And this Christmas, we're giving you the chance to win it all. So don't miss out this Christmas.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation tonight.
The golden age of America begins right now. America's decline is over.
On my final programme of the year, what has 2025 given us? Tax, spend, constitutional meddling and mass migration. But with the British people desperate for change, should we look towards the future with unbounded optimism? Also tonight, is Sir Keir Starmer using the traditional Labour method of pandering to the trade unions to stay in office? Labour has passed a law giving public sector union reps more paid time off, scrapping spending caps and removing the need to reveal the cost to taxpayers, effectively giving a blank cheque to their union-bound paymasters.